Welcome to a new episode of Inside the Builder's Hut. Today we're going to be talking to several guests and going to be covering topics such as Gold Pass, legendary scenery, balance changes, magic snacks, and more. So if you want to hear more about them, stick around. So David, in the beginning of the month, we had a very difficult situation regarding the Gold Pass, and players were quite unhappy about it. And by the way, thank you for letting us know. It was harsh, but necessary. Could you tell us a little bit more about the decision of removing the skin from the Gold Pass?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to take a quick step back. Because in the Clash team, we always have the best intentions of the player in mind. And I know you might think, of course, I would say that, but like Clash is a game that's been around for 12 years, and we want Clash to be around for 20, 30, 40 more years. We want Clash to be a game that's remembered forever. And if we don't do things that are in the best interest of players, that will not happen. Our player base will shrink, and will be a game that's remembered for a couple of decades at most. For us, their player base and growing our player base is the most important thing. And it's more important than monetization. Monetization is important because it allows us to do cooler things in the game for players and incentivizes them to come back next year, next month, next week. And it also allows us to kind of make more players in the world know about Clash. And so it's all with this kind of idea in mind of growing the player base. And so being a game eventually that players will remember forever. But to your question specifically, why we removed the skin from the Gold Pass, ultimately we had reason to believe that people do not buy the Gold Pass because of the skin. And we needed to find out the answer to that question. And the reason that that's important and is in the interest of the players is because if people are buying the skin, they're buying the Gold Pass because of the skin, then that's really useful for us to know, because then that means that the people that are interested in skins in the game is much bigger than we thought. And so when we were prioritizing all the cool things we can do in the game, maybe we prioritize skins a bit higher than other things. And on the other hand, if people are not buying the Gold Pass because of the skin, that's also really important for us to know, because that's not good for players that do like skins, because that kind of devalues skins for those group of players. Because a lot of those players, when they think of skins, they get the value from exclusivity. And if we're giving out these skins to players that don't really care about them, then that's not good for those players and the value that they get from this thing that they care about.
And I think it's super important to have that extra context, because one of the things we missed the mark with this whole decision, I think, was that we didn't communicate properly with our players and talk about this. So I think they're all caught by surprise by this decision. And I think maybe if we were like more open and transparent from the beginning, things could have been different. So I think it's a great learning for us. And it's something that, of course, we're going to apply in the future decisions. And again, we're doing all of this, again, thinking about the player and what's best, but it doesn't mean we're not going to make wrong decisions sometimes, like the wrong choice. It happens. And that's why we have the players to tell us when we're doing something wrong, that we drop the ball so we can fix the issue. And speaking about fixing the issue, we did roll back and we added the skin back in the past, right?
Yeah.
So could you talk a little bit more about that decision as well as like rolling back?
Yeah, okay, before we get to that, I just want to give one more reason for why we removed it. So we did talk about how decos are more kind of available to more town halls versus skins. And so that is also an important part of it, because if you're a Town Hall 7 or 8 and we put like a Royal Champion skin in there, you have to wait a lot of Town Halls until you get it. And I know you could argue that why don't we just have like a skin currency system? And we did think about that, but that's really complex. And then people also could say that why don't you just put the scenery in there, because that is available for lower town halls. But the problem with that is that it still has the same problem. Like, we don't think that people would buy the Gold Pass because of that even. And so we don't want to put something in there that relies on exclusivity. And decos are something that can actually be a good thing in terms of abundance. Like, you can provide them in abundance and it's not necessarily a bad thing. Of course, there's a storage issue with decos that we'll get to later. But then, okay, moving on to your question of why we kind of, like, how we reacted quickly. So we soon found out that actually it seems that maybe the skins were important reason why you buy the Gold Pass. And as soon as we realized that was the way, then we were no longer working in the best interest of the players. So as soon as we figured that out, we're like, okay, we need to turn this around. And we did. We turned it around straight away. But I want to make clear, though, that the failure was not in the initiative to do this. The failure was in how we executed it. And specifically, because we knew that this would be a controversial thing to do, we should have let the players know well in advance to get the dialogue going. And that's where the failure is. And that's what we apologize for. And that's what we'll do better on in the future.
Absolutely. And I think that this is part of the learning as well. When to communicate things, how to communicate things, and we're trying our best. And this is part of that. I think the change was that's why we started doing this episode, so we could communicate more, be more transparent, talk about things that happen in the game, difficult decisions, or things that we messed up, and wins as well. So I think that's something that we're gonna keep learning and improving over time. But back to the question, still talking about adding the skin back to the Gold Pass. Everyone noticed that the skin is a legendary skin, and some players were a bit confused and maybe expecting that the skin rarity is going to be changed to rare. So could you talk a little bit more about this as well?
Yeah, so when we realized that this was the wrong move to make, we wanted to more than make up to it, to the players for it. So that skin will remain legendary. And that's why we also added even more things on the silver side of the track, because we really, it wasn't enough for us just to make up for players, just to kind of strike a balance. We wanted more than make up. And that's why that will remain legendary going forward.
That's amazing to hear. So there you go. And as you said, also have 2 builder potions and 20 starry ores as well that you can claim. So a lot of free stuff. And now we're going to talk about you were talking about the decoration, and we know there's also an issue with decoration where to put it, because players are running out of space. And it's a big problem because you want to showcase your decorations. You have a lot of cool decorations. So what's the next step here?
This is a tricky one. So there are some maybe obvious solutions for this. We could just increase the space around the edge of the scenery, and that would give the players more space for decos. But that's a short-term solution, because eventually we'll run into the space problem again.
Yeah, how far can you go?
Yeah. The next solution that there potentially is this completely separate area. So you have your builder base, clan capital, home village, and then we talked about this sort of sanctuary idea, the safe place that can't get attacked, but you can store and customize your decos there. And that's a decent idea. But the problem with that is that I think players are really interested in decorating their home village, something that they're kind of more emotionally connected to. And maybe the sanctuary wouldn't fit that bill. So the solution isn't super obvious. I guess if we really think about what the problem is, it's not necessarily that players don't have space in the home village to place their decos, it's that they don't have anywhere to place their decos. They don't even have a place in their inventory management to have decos in a nice order. So maybe that's a solution, and maybe that's something that we'll think about going forward.
That's good to hear. Yeah, again, we don't have yet a solution, but we're definitely thinking about it because we recognize this is an issue for players right now. I have one more question before we move forward to the next topic. Can we expect any more controversial changes related to the Gold Pass in the future?
So, ultimately, if we think that there's something, again, in the interest of players, that might be controversial, that relates to the Gold Pass. But having said that, there is nothing else planned like that. In fact, anything else we have planned for the Gold Pass is more on the positive side. At the moment, the Gold Pass is a one pass fits all sort of setup. And we have some changes in mind where we want to, personalize it a bit more, depending on what town hall you're in, depending on how you engage in the game. So this should be a clear positive for the players in terms of the Gold Pass.
All right, that's great news. So there you go. Okay, so we just released our most majestic cosmetic ever, the legendary scenery, and the team done an amazing job with the scenery. But we all know it's more on the premium side when it comes to its price. And I would like you to tell us a little bit more why. What was the decision behind this price?
Yeah, so at $32.99 US, not including tax, it's really expensive. There's no other way to put it. And you might be asking, I thought we were talking about doing things in the best interest of players. How is this in the best interest of players? But there is some good intention here. In Clash, we're trying to become more cosmetic focused when it comes to monetization. And the reason we want to do that is because we want to have monetization that is as fair as possible. And fair monetization essentially is monetization that does not alienate the free-to-play player. And cosmetics in that context is really good. So if we think about the different ways we can monetize, it's just pay to win, and that's something we don't want to do, and I hope the players don't think we do that. There's pay to progress quicker, and that's kind of what we do mostly in Clash. And it's pretty player friendly because when we release new content, everyone gets it. But if you pay, you kind of get first access, early access to it. And in Clash, I think we do a pretty good job of making that fair. But the fairest way to monetize is via cosmetics because they don't alienate the player at all. They have no impact on gameplay, and it's a super fair way to monetize. And when we think about like the revenue we make in the game and the split between pay to progress and cosmetics, we want to increase the share that comes from cosmetics, because we believe that this is the most player-friendly way in the long term to monetize, and kind of sets us up nicely to be this game that's around for 30, 40 years and remember forever.
And said all that, how often do we plan to release this new tier of sceneries?
At the moment, we're thinking like 3 to 4 times max a year. Like, it's really exclusive, and we want the release cadence to reflect that. Because if you're a player and you buy one of these, you may not want to like switch it straight away next month. You might want to hold on to it and like really kind of take it all in. So that's why it's important that it kind of happens at this 3 or 4 times a year cadence. And the months that we don't do the legendary scenery, we'll have the regular scenery selling as usual. So this isn't necessarily like replacing the regular scenery with this really high price legendary scenery. The regular scenery will still be there, and will be there in the months that we don't sell the legendary scenery.
Okay, that's great to hear, because there were some questions about like, okay, so we're having legendary scenery, not having the regular scenery anymore. So we're still gonna have both. It's just, okay, that's good to know. Can we expect something similar for skins, like even like top tier above legendary for skins?
Yeah, maybe. Like, we've talked about potentially this sort of mythic tier skin idea, but we'll see how it goes. Like, I think we do have other plans in store for cosmetics, and that might come before that. But if we have the time, we would definitely like to look into a higher tier for skins as well.
Myself, as a cosmetic collector, because I love cosmetic in every game I play, so I'm really happy to see that we're going that direction as well, exploring more cosmetics in the game, because I think that's super appealing, something you can show everyone. So super excited to hear these things. Do we have any other plans you can share regarding cosmetics for Clash of Clans?
Yeah, I kind of alluded to at the start that we want to do cosmetics that are definitely cheaper if we sell them, or cosmetics we give out to the free-to-play player via engagement. And so the one thing we're thinking a lot about now is emotes, and not necessarily just emotes in the chat, but emotes like as an attacker, as a defender, you can use emotes in different situations. And this is something that we're kind of really considering. That might be this next step for cosmetics. The benefit of emotes is that you can kind of provide them in abundance. They really are good on the social side. It's like an outlet through which players can, express themselves and communicate with others. So we're really excited about this one. So it's still, we're still talking about it. We're still planning about it, but this could be potentially the next step for cosmetics.
Okay, so we had an update just now, and now we have a new type of event in the game, the treasure hunt. And with it, we have a new type of reward, which are the chests. And players are already talking about, because they contain random rewards, and what does that mean? So can you talk to us a little bit more about this new event and this new type of reward?
Randomization is super fun. That's what we think. And players are going to have a lot of fun playing with it. Like Clash, for 12 years, essentially has been a game that's been deterministic in terms of reward structure. Like, you get what you think you're going to get. And that's, for a strategy-based game, that's good. And there's a lot of benefits to that. It's fair, it's transparent, but there are also some downsides to it. It becomes stale, it becomes predictable, it becomes boring, arguably. And so randomization adds in some excitement, which we think is going to be fun for players. And that's not to say that randomization is going to be everywhere in the game now. It will still predominantly be a game that's based upon deterministic-based rewards, because it's a strategy-based game. But we want to sprinkle in a bit of randomization there, because we think it's going to be fun for the players. And then in terms of the event itself, the treasure hunt event, we want to be quite careful with how we introduce this new reward type. We don't want to switch things that players already have with this new thing. So that's kind of why we made it a temporary event out of this. And also the mechanic, the mechanic in the event itself, where the chest is behind one of 3 buildings. We think this could be fun for the players. We want to always try new things to see if the players like it. So we hope that the players do like this sort of guess or check which building the chest is behind. And maybe we'll try more new things like that. And that's kind of the thought process behind the event and the rewards themselves.
I think the event sounds super exciting, especially because it's quite free-to-play friendly, because everyone can get the chests. You can get, if you're lucky, you can get the epic or the legendary chest as well, which can contain amazing rewards.
Yeah.
And we already have the new type of rewards, the magic snacks, which we'll talk about more later. But I think it's super exciting. And again, it's friendly, and it only adds up and more rewards and more type of rewards in the game. So I think it's a very positive thing.
Yeah, and one thing to add there is that so the current setup of the event is that you get 3 chests. You can get 3 chests every 48 hours. Initially, we talked about doing 3 chests every 24 hours, but we really want to be free to play friendly. We really want to be friendly to the players that maybe don't engage that much. And if we did 3 chests every 24 hours, a lot of those players wouldn't get all the chests. And so we wanted to make it a bit kind of more casual player friendly. And that's why it's 3 chests every 48 hours. But let's see how it goes. In the future, we might change that and make it maybe a bit more predominant in these events.
This all sounds great, but many players are already talking about having these type of randomized rewards, or some people call loot box, inside the game, and they're worried about what does this mean for Clash of Clans in the future. Is there anything you can tell us about these type of rewards being in the game now? What does it mean for the game?
Yeah. So I just said that randomized rewards are fun and randomization is fun, but I do understand the kind of darker side of it and the connections it has to gambling. And I want to be super clear that the purpose of this is to create more fun in the game. It's not monetization related. And we have no plans to sell these boxes. It's all going to be connected to engagement and events. That's kind of the plan. And maybe we're in other parts of the game, but we do not plan to sell these things for money. Because again, we have to ask yourself the question, if we want to be a game that's around for 20, 30 or 40 more years, does selling loot boxes get us to that place as a strategy-based game? And maybe the answer to that is no. And so there's no plans to sell these at the current moment, at least.
Pretty sure players will be relieved to hear about this as well. And again, as you said, it's super fun to open a loot box, the chest, whatever you want to call it, and don't know what's inside. And it could be anything of amazing rewards we have. So I think, again, it's just something new and fun to add into the game that's not taking away anything from the players. It's only adding more value to them.
Yeah.
So it's amazing.
And they're called chests. We actually had a lot of time thinking about what we'd call them. And funnily, we landed on chests because they are chests.
Yeah, and it's a treasure hunt. So it makes sense you're going to find chests. Yeah, so it's perfect. Yeah. Another question I have regarding this, now that we have this new type of reward in the game, so far, we only have it available during the event, which is great, and we all understand why. But we have plans on expanding the availability of these chests, where we can find them, other places in the game.
We want to see how this goes. But if it goes well, we would plan to maybe add it to certain different parts of the game. So for example, maybe we add a few to the silver track, maybe we add some to challenge levels, maybe we add some to other places. And maybe we'll make some different types of chests. So maybe we have event-specific chests where maybe you get the pool is all temp troops, or maybe it's cosmetic-specific chests. And these are some of the plans we have going forward. Hopefully it goes well in this first release though.
That sounds super exciting. And just so everyone knows, in case you're not aware, the drop rates for each one of the chests is available for everyone. So you can check what are the chances for you to get each of the rarity types. So everything is pretty clear and you can get the information anytime you want. Mm-hmm. So do we have any more plans for future events? What's next?
Yeah, so when it comes to events, we want to create give something players to talk about. The big moments in the game is when we release new town hall updates. But what happens between those updates? And with events, we want to create really exciting moments for players in between. We want to create moments that are more social, that are really fun and varied and novel. And we do have some plans. So hopefully by the end of this year, we have something pretty special and unique that could be coming. And then next year, our main focus will be on creating this new social event type. So the last time Home Village has had a new social event is with clan games, and maybe next year something else comes.
Sounds like something big.
Maybe something big.
Yeah, okay, exciting. So, all right. Thank you very much, David. It was really nice. So now let's get to the other topics. It's great to have that extra context of why we decided to include hero equipment this time. But is that a reason as well of why we decide to also nerf and not just buff them, the ones that are weaker?
Currently, the game is, at least for some players at Town Hall 16, it's a bit too easy. Some of the competitive game modes like Wars and Legend League are becoming less interesting because it's too easy to get the perfect attack towards your opponent. And for this reason, if we had buffed all the hero equipment, this problem would have become even worse. So we would have even more perfect wars.
I think that when we're from the outside, I think sometimes we forget about these little details and how hard it is to balance all these elements in the game. Is that the reason also why we decided to not just focus on buffing troops or nerfing troops and heroes, and we had to include hero equipments?
Yes, that answer to that question probably comes down to the balance between army and heroes. It was becoming kind of quite clear that the heroes are very strong. Some players were like destroying almost the entire base, or in some cases even the entire base, using heroes only without using any troops. So it seemed, from that angle, it seemed quite clear that we want to address the strength of heroes in some cases. We could have like buffed defenses to make the defenses stronger, but one problem with that approach would have been that if we have some players who don't have the maxed out equipment yet, they are on their way there, and if we had buffed defenses, then those players would struggle more in their attacks.
Makes sense.
Which we wanted to avoid. And we could have also like buffed troops, but then the game wouldn't have become like, the game would have become even easier than it currently is, and that would not be great for the balance of the game, as it was, even in the current situation, it was slightly too easy in Town Hall 16.
That's great to hear, and I think that will help with everyone that's wondering why we decided to do this. And even though there are a lot of players who already understand, I think that nerfs are needed, but sometimes I think we have this idea that only buffing is enough, but that's not true, clearly. We do need the nerfs as well. And now that we've done this for the first time, is this something we can expect in the future? Are we going to keep buffing and nerfing equipments?
We are not going to do that regularly, but we are going to introduce new equipment, and the game is also going to change when we introduce some other new things which might impact how good equipment are. And whenever we do new equipment, we try as hard as possible to make it balanced. But it's always difficult to get the balance just right. We want the new equipment to be strong, so people would feel excited about it and they would want to try it out. But we don't want it to be overpowered. And finding this balance is somehow sometimes difficult, because we have a limited amount of people who are testing these things out before they go live. And in many situations we have these cases where we didn't think of some use cases that players find out there that then cause this equipment to be too strong. So we try to avoid balancing when possible, but if something turns out to be too strong, we will probably have to adjust it eventually. And if something turns out to be too weak, we will have to buff it.
And I think it's great that you mentioned this, because also it takes time, because we need also time to analyze all of this, right? So it's not something that's gonna happen super quick or anything like that, just after release a new hero equipment, because we need time to see the data, see how things like how the use rate and all that, right? So I think it's important also for players to know that it takes time to make these changes. So yeah, it makes perfect sense. And do we have anything on the horizon for a new balance update coming up anytime soon, or not yet?
For equipment, we don't have anything planned at the moment. We will, of course, as you say, we will observe the data. We are like constantly observing what the hit rates and use rates of equipment are. And if something is an outlier, so that it's both heavily used and super strong, then we will have to consider doing something. Or if something is outlier in the other direction, underused and weak, we will have to consider doing balance changes for that. But as you say, gathering this data takes a long time from the live game, and only after gathering the data, we would be comfortable doing those balance changes. And why the data gathering takes such a long time is that it's actually like takes a while to upgrade your equipment.
True.
And takes a lot of resources to upgrade your equipment. So we would want to avoid any hasty decisions in this, because we know that players spend their resources on them, and we don't want to make nerf equipment in such a way that players would feel that they have spent resources on something that becomes useless.
Yeah.
So whenever, if we have to do any nerfs to equipment, we try to do in such a way that it still remains very useful for the players.
And again, I think that's super important because we're not nerfing anything to the point of becoming useless, right? As you said,
Yeah.
There's still an option. It's just that you have more options now. I think at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to achieve, right? Just more options, not less options. So thank you very much, Patrick, for being here.
Thank you very much.
All right, Rafael, right off the bat, I want to know, why did we decide to add magic snacks to the game? I mean, they're tasty, super fun to use, but why?
Yeah, I think the main reason for the existence is that we wanted to make battling more fun, more exciting, and especially more rewarding for players. So it's always more fun to go to the battle if your siege machines are full, but it can be hard for players to request clan castle reinforcement donations every time, and some players don't even know that they can reinforce their troops using raid medals.
True.
So we introduced the clan castle cake. And the same can be applied to a lot of other things like testing new troops or new equipment. It can be a bit challenging, but if you use the power pancake or the mighty morsel, you can go there and you can have these elements in their full potential and experiment like how fun they can be in their maximum level. These magic snacks offer us an opportunity to explore wild effects and giving players this moment of feeling very OP, but keeping the big picture in a fair state.
I would like to know, because I have my own, but what's your favorite magic snack so far?
Well, I have two of them. The first one is the training treat. I really like how it changed my strategies for battling and wars. And the second one is the mighty morsel, because I love having my equipments on maximum level.
That was one of my favorites as well, but the training treat I think is just so good to be able to train your army right away. And I've seen some players talking about, oh, why heroes, they're still like, if they're like resting, they still need to wait for the time. But I think it's so good if you're like just farming as well. So just like training a bunch of sneaky goblins or whatever it is. So I think it's really fun in that way because you don't have to wait, just like jump straight away into it. So I think that was my favorite so far.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear what players think about that one, but I'm hyped.
And I think one of the main differences here between the magic items we have in the game and the magic snacks is that, well, two, they expire and they can't be stacked. So does that mean that magic snacks are gonna be easier to find in the game compared to these magic items?
Well, there are a few points in here. The first one is that we know that players like to save their items, reserve them for that special moment, and we're okay with that. But with these specific items, we want to remove that pressure of like, should I save, should I use it now? We want them to be something that you can acquire and you can explore the benefits right away. You don't have that internal pressure. The decision making is a lot easier. And with that being said, we want to expand your opportunities to get them in the game. At the moment, you can only acquire them through the treasure hunt event, so you get them through the chests. But I think slowly we are gonna see like what are the other spots in the game that we can include them, always with that mantra of rewarding players for their engagement.
And based on what I've seen so far, I think it'd be really cool to find these magic snacks in other places in the game. Because again, as you said, it's really cool to be able to use them right away because again, you don't have the pressure, right? So I think it's really good. Okay, let's just see how it's gonna work. Let's just like test this out. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and we wanna hear from the community. If you have ideas about what are the cool places that we can include these items, let us know. We're always hearing.
And since we're talking about ideas and I guess future plans, what does the future look like for magic snacks?
First of all, we hope that our players love the magic snacks as much as we do, and we would love to keep cooking new recipes for them. So at the moment, we have a lot of extra ideas in our drawers, but there's this constant fact from Clash of Clans that some of our best ideas, they came from the community. So now it's the moment to hear from them. How do they feel about the current set of magic snacks, and what are the new effects that they would like to see in the game? We are all ears.
Again, that's great to hear, and please share your feedback about all of that and more if you have, sure. And as you said before, since they're temporary, they don't stack, we can be a little bit crazier when it comes to the ideas, right, around magic snacks. So please, whatever you have in mind, let us know, no matter how crazy it might sound, we'd love to hear it. So thank you very much, Rafael. Thank you for being here and sharing this insight into the world of magic snacks. Super interesting to know how we all came up with this and what was the reasoning behind. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for watching today's episode. Please leave your feedback down below or in our social channels, what you think about the episode, the topics we covered, and let us know what you want to see in the next one. And as always, we'll see you next time.